Welcome back, Gainesville. What's going on? It's your boy Jerk Jerkins right here on WMBT 90.1 from the beat. And yeah, man, we're here right on Stay Woke Gainesville with Miss Chanae. And we're hanging out, man, with a whole discussing a lot of different topics that are all relative to the local community here. And it's a lot. You know what I mean? It's a lot. I really don't know where to start. But what I will start is I want to ask you about some things we were just discussing off the air. And the plans that we have and the work that's being done. So I'm going to start with food insecurity. And from there, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and take it away from there and just kind of let us know the issue and then some solutions that we're implementing.
So I want to start actually with a background.
Okay.
Whenever you look, people always say statistics. So whether it's government or when people use an excuse to make a decision about anything, they always look at statistics.
Mm-hmm.
What you look at to see if somebody actually is living a fulfilled life is what's called quality of life indicators.
Okay.
The quality of life indicators are access to affordable housing, access to transportation, access to health care, access to quality education, access to quality foods. So it's those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Also, too, the interactions with the criminal justice system is a major factor when it comes to a quality of life indicator. There is, and I know if anybody has seen me when I've done some of my live videos as it pertains to my son,
mm-hmm.
one of the things that I always reference is a study that they wasted a bunch of money on, and I said it was a waste because all the data was what anybody who lives in Gainesville knows is being going on.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at all of the quality of life indicators, we have what's called the largest disparity. And the disparity is the difference between how well a black person is or a minority is doing versus how well a white person is doing. So that means we have the highest gaps. So if somebody ever cites you, okay, what an average is, that's not an accurate perception of what actually is going on because the average is somewhere actually in the middle where they average everything together. So there's something called outliers. So if somebody makes a whole bunch of money, if we're looking at wage disparity, and we're looking at income, then that means we're not accounting for the people who are at the very bottom of the totem pole.
I understand what you're saying.
So that's what we're talking about in reference to that. So there are so many issues. I know when I name it, everybody's like, whoa, even when you look at this particular study, my frustration is when we look at all the racial disparities, all the people that are at the table keep saying, oh, there's an issue, and they keep stating, well, we don't know how to find a solution to the issue. Well, part of it is they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
And you're not talking to the people. You think you know everything, but you're not talking to the people who are actually impacted. So one thing I keep saying over and over is you got to bring those voices to the table. Stop handpicking a person you want to talk about a particular program that you say is working, and actually go and do a random sample and talk to the people that are being served. You can go to any social service organization and they're going to say that the work they're doing is absolutely great, it's wonderful, and it's amazing. But then when you talk to the people that are being served, you're going to find that the access is limited. You're going to find that they're being demeaned in the treatment that they have for them. You're going to find out that they don't feel empowered.
I've heard you say that a lot, and I always like when you say that. You know what I mean? Speak to the people that actually receiving the services.
Absolutely. And when I think that you speak to the people, it's not, we had an event with food one time and nobody showed up. There's no trust. If you talk to the people, there's many people who've taken on roles, and I'll get to the housing engagement meeting that they had on Wednesday. The people that new people to the table are realizing this, people are hurt, they're confused, they're frustrated, and they're disengaged. And that's the reason you're looking at people not showing up to the polls to vote. And that's a lot of the reason that people don't show up to advocate for anything, because they believe that if they show up, it won't matter anyway. And so therefore you got to build trust. People want to trust you before they want to know what you can do for them.
Right.
And the way that you build trust is you might go one time and it didn't work, but that doesn't mean not go back. That means go back 2, 3, 4, 5 times. That's the particular issue. Also, too, when you're going and you're talking to people that are most impacted, they're going to say, well, I got this degree, I got that degree, and I've worked at this particular company, because what in essence you've done is told somebody that you're better than them without even trying. And so you've actually, instead of building a bridge, you've created a larger gap.
Right.
So those are the things that are important. And two, there's also what's called coded language. the manner in which you talk to somebody is not always what you say, it's actually how you say it. So if it comes across as condescending, if it comes across as, I remember sitting in a city commission meeting, and the person that is over the CRA, she was like, well, I wouldn't be opposed to going over there, because Commissioner Simmons was very offended that the comprehensive plan, they didn't have meetings that were actually in District 1. You don't say, well, I wouldn't be opposed to coming. You should say, I'll be glad to go and have a meeting and make sure it discusses the residents. When somebody engages,
that makes it like it's something wrong with, you know what I mean? It's crazy.
And so, it's those particular things. So before we can even get anywhere to where we actually need to be, we need to realize not only that we're not engaging the people that need to be engaged, but how we're engaging those people. Once we actually get the people that need to be engaged to the table, they got to have decision-making power. It doesn't help if I come sit to a table with you and I tell you what I like and I don't like, but I have no power in any of the decisions that you're making, which means your decisions probably won't benefit me anyway. Right. But if you make decisions, you might have every belief that the decision that you're making is what's best for us, but because you didn't include me in decision-making, there's no buy-in. So your implementation will never be right because you excluded me from the part where the power was. So people need to actually have power and what's actually going on to be a part of the neighborhoods. I give an example. I was talking to someone over in Greater Duval area, on off of 8th Avenue, and they were saying that the store right there is a liquor store, and they're selling liquor and cigarettes to our people, and they doing this and they doing that. Well, for me, I'm suburban, so I'm like everybody. After a long day, I can't drink right now, but when you do, what you do, you go home, you get a drink, and you unwind. So why is that a negative thing in a neighborhood that's of a lower socioeconomic status? You got to change out how you look at things. So no, we might not want the store to sell cigarettes and liquor. We need to look at why people feel the need to have to drink so much liquor and smoke so many cigarettes. Wow. That's what we actually need to be looking at as we're making decisions.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's always a reason for it.
Absolutely. If you start to address those things, then you can actually fix the gaps that are actually in the system.
I want to talk a little bit about some of these disparities that are in Gainesville. Not just racial disparity, but even one side of town and the other one, and things like food deserts and that sort of thing. So what are some of those disparities that the study found, and could you talk a little more about?
I'll start with criminal justice.
Right.
One of the disparities that they found was that African American people are more likely to have a negative interaction with law enforcement, 6.8 times more likely.
Wow.
We're 8.8 times with our juveniles more likely to be arrested. We are only about 20% of the population, but we make up 74% of the jail population. My issue with that is there's so many different factors, so you can't point at one factor, but it often can start with the Leo. So it can start there, but it doesn't have to actually end there. But there is a culture here. And I always want to point it out to people. Things that happened to my son, yeah, we won, but it's not just my son. It's an incident that never should have occurred. He never should have been mistreated in the manner in which he was.
And I mean, I'm not, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it wasn't, the win that you guys got, it wasn't easy to get. Right? You know what I mean? So it goes to show that even when you have limited success, it's still a fight. You know what I mean? So it shows that there's a lot of work to do.
Absolutely. And we're not leaving that part alone. So now what we want to do, but it takes time, is to gather all that data, look at all the stops that were similar to his, and just see what the stops at this, but look at the demographics. Let's look at black people, white people, young people, old people. So what I've learned to do is we can't rush it. We got to go through it and sift through it in order to look at what really is wrong. But one thing that I always say when we talk about disparities in the system, only one or two things is true. Either there's bias in the system, or there's something wrong with black people. Right. We know number two is not true. Right. And so with that, that's the manner in which you have to look at that. Right. Then when you go to wage disparity, you got a 44% gap in income. So even with us, we can say it's East and West Gainesville, but the city is pretty much divided. So because of that, even the geographic location ends up being a racial disparity. Wow. When you look at the educational disparities, some of the disparities are so high in certain schools that there's a 78% gap in how well black children are performing compared to white children in the exact same school.
You said the racial disparity and achievement gap is worse than the state.
It's the highest.
Highest in the state.
Well, all of our disparities are highest in the state. So our criminal justice disparity is always between number 1 and number 3.
Wow.
Our educational disparities is number 1. Our wage disparities is number 1. And a few years ago, we were number 4 in the country.
That.
So we always look at, we always say it depends on who you talk to. When you talk about Gainesville, it depends on who you talk to, what viewpoint you're actually going to get. A meeting I went to, so Dr. Ann Wolf is actually working with the city of Gainesville now. And her job basically is engagement. And how do we engage our citizens so that we actually can attain equity, so that we can have equal footing? So many people that are vulnerable, or not even just necessarily vulnerable, but that are not having access to the same things as other people can get what they need, can have their voices heard, and have decisions that are made to actually benefit them. And her and a few other people that live in her neighborhood, it was interesting because they live in East Gainesville near 16th Avenue and 9th Street. And they were talking about their neighborhood and how wonderful it is, and it's great, and all the stuff they have access to. And it's interesting because they choose to be there. They purchase their home there, but then when you go knock on the doors of the actual residents who've always been there, they don't share that viewpoint. They share the viewpoint of their utility bills are sky high. They are there because they can't afford to go anywhere else. They might be able to maintain their mortgage or their rent payment, but they can't maintain repairs and things like that on the house. It was so interesting to me that even in the same neighborhood, how people can have such a very different perception. And is Dr. Wolf's perception wrong? Absolutely not. Are the people who don't share that perception, are their views wrong? Absolutely not. We got to figure out why people in the same neighborhood have vastly different perceptions.
Right. And that's what I was going to ask you about next is with all these different areas of the disparity. And you were saying that, with the mall, we're amongst the worst in the state. Where do we begin when it comes to response and resolution and solutions?
Coming to the table. The way you begin, before you can even develop the plan, an efficient plan, is to gather all the information. One thing about it is it's slow, and that's even more frustrating. Where we have to go back and begin at is coming to the table. I went to a conference that was an equity conference, and they talked about disparities in Louisiana. And one of the people that spoke says you demand your seat at the table, because if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu.
Right.
Yes. So when you state that, and that's what's happening here, because we're not at the table, often decisions that are made are not decisions that we actually want. One thing that stands out now is even too, we're looking at putting a civic center in East Gainesville. At first glance, me being somebody I live, that'd be great. A civic center, they can bring all these people here. We can have gospel concerts. But when you talk to the people on East Gainesville, they don't want that. They want a emergency room. They want urgent cares. They want grocery stores. They want restaurants. So to them, they want to attain some of the things that West Gainesville has before you get a civic center. Where people who are at the table are saying, well, if we do this first, then we can draw the other stuff, because they keep saying that East Gainesville is not a place, it's hard to sell people to come in. To me, when you makes it difficult for people on two things, when it's difficult for people on the outside to come in, that's your presentation. So you're not selling East Gainesville as being beneficial. So when they keep saying that people can't make money in East Gainesville, well, black people are the biggest spenders. We're the people that drive any economy. So how is it that you can't make money in East Gainesville if the biggest people that spend money live in East Gainesville?
Live there. Yeah, right. And we're driving 20 minutes west to go spend our money.
Absolutely. So
why won't we spend our money?
Number one, but then number two, let's stop. I was trying to bring in outside things and actually engage the people that live on those sides. You already got barbers. You already got people that know about food. I was surprised at the number of even black farmers that we actually have here that are still not at the particular forefront. So we actually have access to food. You have people you have people that are tax preparers. You got people that are building restaurants and everything else. So when we keep stating what are the challenges, we're bringing a Wawa, but there's so much talent sitting actually in East Gainesville.
Wow, that's brilliant. Well, we're gonna talk more about affordable housing in a minute, and how that's important to our community, and some things that we need to know about there. We're going to play a few quick songs, and we'll be right back. Y'all are going to keep it locked right here on Stay Woke Gainesville on WBT 90.1 FM. Alright, 1 second. Check out this Facebook.